Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world. My name is Blackjack. Welcome back to the channel. As always, today we are going to be doing a comment section commander deck for you. If you guys are interested in having me put a deck together for you, I'm willing to work in any kind of commander space you're looking for. Any combination of a commander, a theme, a budget, a power level, any pet cards you want to play, please leave it down below and I'd be happy to put it together, make a YouTube video out of it, and hopefully give you some inspiration before you do it yourself. That being said, let's get started for today. The request comes from a personal friend of mine named UnknownDelta. They are someone who's been playing Super Friends for a long time in Commander. It's their only Commander deck and they wanted to change your pace. So they asked for Alela, Artful, Provocateur with Bitter Blossom as a pet card, no budget restriction. They're also looking for some Planeswalkers because they love them, but unfortunately for you, Delta, you are an addict. You are a diseased individual who plays too many Planeswalkers, so you get not a single one in this deck, but I still think you're going to have a good time. So let's get started. Alela Artful Provocateur is Esper Colors, Flying, Death Touch, Lifelink. Other creatures you control flying get +1/+0. Take note of that point. There's going to be a lot of flying incentive-based cards and mechanics in this deck. And then whenever you cast an artifact or enchantment spell, you get to make a 1/1 blue fairy with flying. So this is going to be a healthy mix of controlling fairies, dealing damage in the air, making your stuff more powerful, making stuff on the ground less powerful. It does a little bit of everything that Esper likes to do typically. Alela, Cunning Conqueror, is a way for us to make fairies. Enduring Innocence is going to be a great way to draw cards consistently in this deck. Fairy Artisans is a cool fairy, but also kind of gives us everybody else's stuff. Fairy Bloodcrafter is a way to grow over time based on the amount of combat damage that fairies are dealing. Fairy Formation is a cool one that you can invest late game if you have extra mana to make stuff and draw cards. Harbinger is an interesting way of tutoring any of these fairies up. So instead of playing your typical demonic tutors, which are just way overpowered for a casual commander game, this is the sweet spot of being able to still find an awesome fairy, but not just a game-winning spell. Glenelendra Archmage is an awesome fairy. It's been around for a long time, being able to give Persist and then just pay a blue to sack it to counter a non-creature spell. Glenelendra Liege is a way to build up our token army. High Fae Trickster is a new one. It's awesome. It's a fairy that allows us to operate completely as though we had flash. Magus of the Moat, creatures without flying can't attack. Pretty much everything in this deck is going to have flying, so playing something like this that makes it super awkward for the rest of the table, but realistically has almost no effect on you, is going to be an awesome way to get ahead. Mondrak doubles all of our fairies. Una makes fairies. Rankle is a fairy that can do almost everything. Roaming Throne can double all of the fairy triggers. Scion buffs them all. Spell Stutter, obviously you can counterspell with it. And then Tagwill is a cool way to, again, buff our fairies and then draw cards. Sorceries. So we have Dam. One of my favorite ways is in white and black to not only deal with one creature but also be a board wipe. We have a second board wipe here in Supreme Verdict. There are going to be times where people get out faster than you and you're just going to have to wipe the board before you start building your own army. But more often than not, I want you to focus on building your own army and protecting it. Notorious Thrawn is a cool way to make fairies as well as being able to take an extra turn. One of the only extra turn spells that I'm genuinely okay with in a casual game of Commander. Raise the Palisade, the Palisade, whatever. Choose a creature type, bounce everything that's not it. So it's essentially another board wipe. You're just going to name fairy, and it's going to be a one-sided Cyclonic Rift where you just bounce all non-fairies. Winged Words is going to be almost an Ancestral Recall every single time for you. It's going to cost 1 blue mana, and it's going to draw us 2 cards. Instant Suite, so we have Counterspell, Dovin's Veto, Lofty Denial, Negate, and Spell Stutter. And, oh no, that's not a counterspell. All of these are here. Again, we are not necessarily a control deck that's dealing with stuff turn after turn. I would say if I played this deck, I would hold a lot of this permission back, just protect my own army. I think you're going to more often than not have the biggest board, and people are going to be trying to board wipe you versus you trying to board wipe them. So it's important that you're using this stuff to protect your creatures and you're not getting board wiped over and over. Fairy Fencing is a synergistic removal piece. Flawless Maneuver is an obvious another way to protect our army, and it's free. Swords to Plowshares, great removal, as well as Void Rend. In these colors, it's always nice to play cards like this that are just amazing pieces of removal. Teferi's Protection is another way to, again, protect our army. Artifacts, so our ramp section is going to be Arcane Signet, all of the land-based signets, so Azorius, Orzhov, as well as Dimir, Felwar Stone, Mind Stone, Soul Ring, all the talismans, Thought Vessel, as well as Patchwork Banner. Patchwork Banner is going to be amazing in a deck like this. Normally I don't play 3 mana ramp. I don't think it's very good in most decks, but being able to get a kinship effect where we get +1/+1 to our army on top of it makes it 100% worthwhile. Ashnod Altar is going to be a great way of us being able to utilize those fairies. We're not always going to have to win the game with them. Sometimes we want to get out bigger spells that are going to cost more mana. And then with all of these creatures, obviously we want to draw cards. So a lot of our card draw is going to look like this. Biden of Thassa. Whenever a creature deals combat damage, you get to draw a card. Idol of Oblivion is good card draw, as well as Skull Clamp. Vanquisher's Banner is another great piece of card draw that interacts with the fairies. And then we do play Lightning Greaves as well as Swiftfoot Boots because we have very important creatures that we do want to protect. Enchantments, Anointed Procession doubles all of our fairies. Bitter Blossom, your pet card, and it's a great one. Coastal Piracy as well as Reconnaissance Mission are both going to be great ways of card draw over time, having engine pieces. Favorable Winds is going to boost all of our fairies. Gravitational Shift is an awesome one. It's going to boost all of our creatures with flying, which is every creature in the deck, and then it's going to give everything else -2/-0. Intangible Virtue is going to boost all the tokens that we're making up. Renewed Solidarity is going to be a good way of boosting them, as well as essentially adding another token. Smothering Tithe in any Esper deck, if you can afford it and it's in your budget and your table's comfortable with it, it's always an amazing card to play, and probably the first game changer that I look at when I'm looking at these colors. Tokasa's Welcome is great card draw over time, and then Unstoppable Plan is going to be a cool way for us to basically cast stuff, play stuff out, and then be able to untap things and still hold up removal and permission on other people's turns. You might be wondering why this deck is over $2,000. That's because I just went nuts with the mana base. It's nowhere near this price, but he did say unlimited budget, and I know he's got some dual lands that are collecting dust in a binder, so let's get him out and let's show him some love. There's nothing crazy to note. It's about as good as an Esper mana base can get, in my opinion. I will say 3 Tree City is an awesome new card that allows us to get X mana, where X is the number of creatures of a type that we have. So if we have fairies, we might be able to make 6 or 7 mana off of this every turn. Finally, Vault of the Archangel is an awesome way to interact with the board and have an onboard combat trick that you can activate at any time. Huge swings of life gain or a massive block that you then give all your stuff Death Touch, and you essentially get to just wipe somebody off the board for that. Overall, I think this deck turned out really, really sweet. The card draw looks consistent. The instant package, the creature package, I think it's everything you want. If you were looking at making some changes, the obvious adds would be things like Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, more consistent card draw that's cheaper. I went a different route and did stuff like Biden Athasa because it's more thematic to the deck, it's more interesting for the deck, and it's just not as lame as putting a Rhystic Study or a Mystic Remora in your casual decks. But if you choose to and your table's cool with it, I would definitely full send. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the deck. I am not particularly excited to play against you with it because I think it's going to be pretty powerful, but either way, I'm excited that you're no longer going to be playing Atraxa. Thank the Lord. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, Godspeed.